Let's get this show on the road. Thanks so much for joining us, everybody. We've got some fun things to walk through today. So hopefully you've all brought your data scientist hat with you, and we can all geek out a little bit to some of the more technical aspects of the platform or more of the data-oriented aspects of the platform. So what is today all about? What we thought we'd try and do is just share with you some of the various aspects of the Eloqua platform that can help you manage data and manage it better. So there are a number of tools available to help you. There's some things that you can create which would be automated, and there's others that you probably need to be a little bit more involved in. But let's have a closer look at some of those, and we'll explain how you can benefit from those. So just by way of introduction, my name is Derek Bell. For those who don't know me, welcome. Good to have you with us. I look after customer success and marketing at Marketing Cube. And Jason O'Donnell, one of our account directors, is also on the line. So Jason's managing the chat functionality for us, which I can often not do myself. So it's good to have Jason there. So if you do have any questions throughout the course of the webinar today, please make sure you use the chat function and we'll definitely get to those. This is very much your user group, so please feel free to shoot some questions through. So just revisiting the agenda for today's session. Essentially, we'll give you a little bit of an overview on, strictly speaking, what are the data tools that are available within Eloqua. And I should point out that it may also depend on your level of access to the platform that will determine whether or not you can see these. So at least today, if you don't have access to them, you can at least talk to those people who do. Potentially your Eloqua administrator will be able to assist you. We'll also look at custom data objects because they're a really important aspect of data and managing data within the platform. Strictly speaking, they're not referred to as a data tool, but they certainly go a long way to helping you manage your data. We'll also then look at some data cleansing in relation to apps and additional tips to help you manage that data within the platform, and we've got some very specific examples that we can show you as well and walk you through those. We'll also take another look at the 19C release of Eloqua that happened this month, just revisit a few more of those points and have a close look at, well, not really a close look, I was going to say a close look at 19D, which is due in November, but we don't know anything about it yet. So we'll skip on that one and progress to questions. But we did have a question submitted from Dan in Auckland. So Dan, hopefully looks like you're on the line today. So Dan's question was, can you please also cover contact duplication and merging records? Okay, so there's two questions there. And in short, Dan, I need to give you probably the first one, is you cannot merge contact records in Eloqua. That's the first point. But to try and alleviate that concern, I was trying to think through, in reality, where do duplicates come from? And often the duplicates will come from CRM or ERP type of platforms. But one of the functionalities that Eloqua does give you is the ability to change a contact's email address. As you know, the email address is the unique identifier within the platform. And so it's just not possible to have two contacts in Eloqua with the same email address. So sometimes what can happen is perhaps in the CRM, there's a change made in the CRM at the contact level or the lead level, and an email address is overwritten. Now, when the integration kicks in, as far as Eloqua is concerned, that now becomes a new contact. So you'll end up with John Smith in the CRM with one email address, with the old one having been taken away. But in fact, what you've done is you've taken away the unique identifier from Eloqua's point of view. And then what you'll end up is with two John Smiths sitting in Eloqua, one with the old email address and one with the new email address. So a smarter way to manage that process is to provide the CRM users with the ability to update the email address, potentially using an Eloqua form. So we've seen this done through some CRM functionality. So there are different ways you can do it. You can have a button in the CRM potentially, and the link behind that button actually opens an Eloqua landing page. And that would be a very simple form that you would have on that Eloqua landing page. And what I've got here is just a visual to show you the back end of the form. So the form itself would simply be current email address, a new email address, and a submit button. That's all you would need. And that's exactly what's sitting here. So you can see there's actually a processing step called change contact's email address. Another perfect place for this is if you wanted to have a standard type of experience for people when they receive your email. It might be update my details. So it could be a small preference center of sorts. That way you can present people with the ability to have their current email address on display and then enter their new email address, and then using the form processing step, you would be able to manage that. So Dan, I hope that goes some way to answering your question. If you need a hand with that particular processing step that you can see on the screen right now, we can certainly help you with that. That's a pretty simple process. We use that ourselves in our CRM. So basically what that means is our CRM team users know that they can't just simply change the email address within the contact or lead object. They need to actually click on the button and let Eloqua take care of that. So it updates in Eloqua, and then with the integration, within 15 minutes, that change is then reflected back in the CRM platform. Okay. So from there, let's jump into data tools. So data tools, essentially, strictly speaking, from Eloqua's point of view, there are two types of data fields. So an overview of the Eloqua data tools. So the deduplication and validation rules are two particular tools available to help you do a range of different things. So let's have a closer look at what they look at. Okay, so basically you've got the ability to provide some logic or give Eloqua some logic to help you manage, to start with, say, deduplication. And so essentially what you're able to do is give Eloqua a set of rules to avoid, and it might be using things like first name, email address, and potentially another value. So that if that information should come into the platform from whatever direction, you can use those rules to ensure that we don't end up with multiples of potentially the same person. Now, of course, we know email address is unique in Eloqua, so you can't get duplicates that way. But you may have individuals for whatever reason, and it's not just around the individuals, it's also the data that's coming into the platform. So you can manage that in a whole range of different ways. The validation rules kind of go along the same path, but let's have a look first of all at duplication. So you can create new deduplication rules from the data tools menu, and I'll show you where that is in a moment. We'll log in and got a screenshot here to share with you as well. And as we say here, there's a single table duplication rule that allows you to duplicate records from the same data entity. So for example, contacts against contacts, whereas you could also do multiple table deduplication rules that let you look at different type of entities. So it could be contacts against companies. So just helping you clean data as you move through and as data is coming into the platform, not just from the CRM, but also potentially via form submissions as well. And it's more likely that the data from the CRM or ERP is probably cleaner. Sometimes when you give people the flexibility of just filling in a form, they're not always going to be sensitive to your data model and what you need. And so these tools can help you cleanse that process. So this is just a screenshot to give you an idea where you're going to find data tools. So again, so it's in the contact area, down the bottom towards tools, and then off to data tools specifically. So again, it will depend on your level of access to Eloqua, to whether or not you can access and see that information. We touched on this a little bit last month. We had an inquiry or a question from someone here in Sydney. And one of the things that we showed you there was some of the different types of rules that you can use within these validation rules. And so specifically here, it was about applying a date stamp. You could overwrite value from a contact field or from a lookup table, or overwrite it from some other field. Or if you need to just hardwire it, that is like set it to a value, then you've got that information as well. So you can see there's a number of update actions that can be performed there. So lookup tables become a little bit exciting, and I've got well, exciting from a geeky point of view, that is. But I've got a very specific example that I want to show you where we at Marketing Cube use lookup tables. Now, in the context of the contact washing machine, which we'll talk about a little bit later, the contact washing machine has a few of these already built in, and it's quite neat. You can set them to do a whole range of things. So they've hardwired and built in 4 of them. I love that there's a celebrity match. That one just makes me laugh. I don't know what happens if you type in Tom Cruise or something, and I'm terrified to see what happens. But I tested, I was looking at it from the first name to gender, for instance. So you type in Matthew and you hit enter and it comes up male. And you type in Sam, as it says here, and Sam becomes unisex because obviously it could be Samuel or Samantha. Now, I'm not sure how well it's going to do out of the non-Anglo environments, which obviously is a big part of our community here in the Asia Pac region. But it would be curious to see. But you can add to this as well, right? So these are just hardwired and built in to the contact washing machine, and you can use these today. But you'd possibly want to tailor them. They're reasonably generic, which is good. But I wanted to show you a specific example of where we've used lookup tables to help us manage data a little bit better. So let me jump into Eloqua, and I'll show that to you right now. I was trying to be organized. Oh, yep, there I am. All right, so we go to the contact menu, to tools, and down to data tools. And then from data tools, you'll see there's a number of tabs here. And in these different tabs, you can do different things. And what I wanted to show you specifically today was one that we have, which is a lookup table. And specifically, this lookup table focuses on a field that we have against the contact called region. So what we did is we took every country on the planet, and from Marketing Cube's point of view, we assigned it a region. So you can see we have Australia, New Zealand as the Asia Pacific region. And then for our northern neighbors in Asia, so for instance, you have Singapore, Malaysia, China, etc. We've assigned those to the Asia region. Then we have Europe. The impetus for us doing this was that we were looking at GDPR and just trying to be clear about how we would communicate with people within the EU versus those who are within Europe. And so you can see here we have the United Kingdom, where we're preempting Brexit. So we've got the United Kingdom as Europe, but the Netherlands, France, Germany, Sweden are EU, for instance. And so what happens here is this lookup table works in concert with a program canvas. And so every day, it's just once a day, Eloqua looks at all contacts, specifically recently modified ones. And as long as there is a value listed in the country field, then it comes to this lookup table and it says, right, that contact has said they're in the United Kingdom. Therefore, I'm going to pre-populate the region field on the Eloqua contact to say Europe. And we found this really quite helpful because we use it, it certainly helps from a data integrity point of view. It's one other question that we don't have to ask people when they fill in the form. If they simply disclose which country they're in, that's all we need. So we can have that data then flow through and automatically assign the region. So if you kind of sit back and think for a minute about your own data and different questions that you ask, lookup tables can be really helpful to help you beef up the profile information that you have of people, especially, I suppose, from a prospecting point of view. You don't want to ask a million questions, but sometimes the answer to one question allows you to assume certain other things as well. So there's a whole range of thinking that can go into the best application for something like a lookup table. Now, this is pretty simple. We just sat down, I think it was Jason and I sat down and mapped the world, a list of countries, thinking about how we wanted to divide the world up from a region point of view. It literally was an Excel file, country in column A, region in column B. We then handballed that over to the support team. They uploaded it for us. I think you can see here. Yeah, you can upload the lookup table. You can build it directly here, but when you've got, what is there, like 250 plus countries in the world, it's easier to upload. So you can upload those there. And then you're off and running. It's the program canvas that then pulls that all together for us and on a daily basis just simply washes that particular data. So curious to see what you think. I mean, do you see any advantage to something like that with your own data to help you clean things? Can you make assumptions about certain types of data that you're getting in the system today that would enable you to do something like this to automatically populate additional fields within the platform? If you've got any questions, please shoot those through and we will jump on to the next area. All right. So if you have any questions on those, please shoot them through. Let's jump in though and have a closer look at how custom data objects can really help you manage your data. So custom data objects are a really cool part of Eloqua and can really help you do a lot of things. Essentially, what they let you do, as we say here, is you can compile and use unique data that is relevant to an account or to a contact, but it's not necessarily static information. It could be things that change over time. So for instance, we ask a question of people when they join the Eloqua User Group to give us a little bit of an idea as to how frequently they're accessing the database. So if we wanted to keep track of that information over time, we would put that information into a custom data object, because every time the person answers that question, we would keep adding a new record in the database against that particular individual. Now, in reality, with that particular field, what we do is we're not so interested in keeping the history, so we just store that on the contact. So just to be clear, the downside of storing it on the contact is that when information is updated by the person, what was previously in that field is lost. It's overwritten by the new value. And that's how the contact works in Eloqua. So if you wanted to keep history, and a good example is things like surveys, for example, or things like recent purchase history. And so I've got a few of those examples here for you. So things like recent purchase history, if you've got information coming in from point of sale systems, for example, some of these examples are fun. So a cable subscriber's programming preferences. I think Netflix are all over me. They must have some serious custom data objects keeping track of what I watch. You could also look at whether a customer has used a one-off limited time promotional discount code. And so we've had customers use custom data objects for example, they're in the financial services space and they had specific incentives for their retailers that should they use particular types of products, basically created different levels. And so it was really important that over time that information be captured in specifically in a custom data object, so that we could always look at the most recently modified one to ensure that automated emails that went out told them, congratulations, you've met your target for this quarter, etc., that type of information. So it was the combination of the CRM, well, actually it was their financial system feeding into the CRM, that information coming into Eloqua at a custom data object level, and then emails automatically triggering to go out at the end of the quarter to give those customers an update on their rebates. That's what it was. It was rebates, etc., that would happen. And so because that information changes throughout the month and then it changes quarter on quarter, you need to keep that information in a custom data object versus keeping it on the Eloqua contact where you would lose all of the history. So any sort of supplementary information. So we also use a custom data object internally for more obscure information, or as it says there, information that's slightly nuanced or maybe just for marketing. I'm just trying to think through an example. We did a survey some time ago and we asked people a specific question around their confidence levels platform. And that obviously is something that could change over time. So as we repeat that survey, a person's confidence level hopefully will increase over time. And so we wanted to store that information on the custom data object. The other reason for that is we wanted to be able to bring that back into Eloqua as a field merge, so that when we sent them an email, we could say to them, you shared with us that your confidence level was XYZ, whatever the case was. And so that became a field merge directly from the custom data object, which you could also do from a contact, of course, but we wanted to keep the history of that information. So each time the person responded to that information. So again, the custom data object becomes the best place to do it. So what is it essentially? The key thing is that you've got a database filled with a lot of individual people and unique individuals with a whole range of different experiences. So basically, the custom data object is a set of custom records that supplement the standard contact and account records. So typically, your contact and account records will come in from a CRM platform through some type of integration. And the information you would store on the custom data object is to supplement that main data. And the nice thing about it being in a custom data object is that you can then segment by it. You can field merge, personalize your communications based on that information. There's a whole range of things that you can do. And Basically, custom data objects just grow and grow and grow and grow. They're very scalable. So even if you're in an environment where you have high level of transactions happening and lots of data coming in, you can be confident that the custom data object can manage that. And that may be more in a retail scenario or even in financial services with transactions, those sorts of things that might happen frequently versus, for instance, a car manufacturer or car. People don't tend to buy cars every day. You might want to buy one every 3 to 5 years, but still, you could still store that same information on the custom data object. Just to help you get your head around it a little bit further. So you can build custom data objects in any combination that you want. They're almost a bit like a blank sheet of paper when you start with them. And so you can add as many fields as you need. And then, of course, create your field merges, all your personalization, etc. can flow from that easily as well. But as it says here, they're powerful and flexible. They also refer to them as linked records. And you might have noticed that when you look at the contact in Eloqua. If I just jump back in here for a second, you might have looked at it and wondered what on earth it was. So when you look at the contact in Eloqua, you've got linked records over here. So this is showing you various bits and pieces. The information here is, I don't think, overly helpful necessarily because it's really just this code and when it was created. So the key thing that you're able to get from here is sort of recency and activity that's been happening. So yeah, so that can help sometimes just with data information. But that's what that is. It's just to show you that there is data against that contact that is sitting in a custom data object. So just as a little bit of a visual to help. So keeping in mind that the main reason you want a custom data object is because you have a one-to-many relationship. So what does that mean? Typically from a CRM to Eloqua, it's very much a one-to-one type of relationship. So it's the same email address, for instance. You know, if I'm in that database on the left, my name is Derek, therefore I'm Derek over here in Eloqua. I don't have multiple first names. I'm just Derek. That's just one name. I work with one company, for instance. I have one mobile phone number. So it's very much a one-to-one type of example. But as soon as you're in a scenario where you have lots of data that relate to me that you're wanting to keep on file, and I've just sort of given you some examples here on the right-hand side. So these gray databases you can see would be the custom data objects. And you might capture things like membership. If you're a membership-based organization, you might capture that type of information. You might want to look at contracts. So contracts could be really helpful to understand expiry dates, length of contracts, how many contracts there are, for instance. All of that information might help you from a segmentation point of view. Warranty could be interesting. Certainly warranty, along with information about specific products, expiry dates, being able to trigger certain communications out to people, knowing that the warranty expires in the next or within the next 90 days, as an example. Opportunities is a very common integration between Eloqua and most CRM platforms. And that's really helpful because it enables the marketing team to control, to include or exclude people from campaigns based on maybe where they are in the buyer's journey, as identified from the opportunity stages within the CRM. So that's certainly one of the more common points of integration. Campaigns is another common point of integration between Eloqua and most CRM platforms. So that's the key point you can see there, hopefully. CRM to Eloqua, it's very much a one-to-one relationship, but as soon as you have one-to-many types of information, then that's where your custom data object is going to come into place. Do you have any questions there about custom data objects? And hopefully you'll see and understand there's some value in those in relation to how you manage your data. Okay, I think everyone's looking pretty good. All right, let's jump on to our next topic. So I wanted to walk you through some data cleansing and looking at apps, of course, the favorite one, but let's jump in and have a look at data cleansing. So I feel like we talk about this all the time, but there is so much to talk about. So I just wanted to revisit again that good old friend, the contact washing machine. Now, use of the contact washing machine will vary for everybody. It really is quite an amazing little piece of technology. And when it comes to data cleansing, got a range of things that can really help you out of the box. The thing you've always got to consider in relation to any of this sort of data cleansing is the long-term impact. And by that, I mean source of truth. So we can go ahead and make changes and updates to Eloqua, but Eloqua typically doesn't sit as an island in your data ecosystem. It's generally connected to a CRM. And in most cases, the CRM is really the source of truth. So it's great. We can do some cleansing on the first name, for example. If somebody in Eloqua, if they've come into the system and they're all in uppercase, we can at least manipulate that data and change it so it's their proper case. So that'll work on the campaign canvas, and I'll show you here in a moment some flows to how you would use that. But there's a whole range of actions that you can perform with the contact washing machine. So this information you can find in the Help Center, by the way, and it will show you all the different bits and pieces. Let me just jump in here for a second and give you an example as to what that might actually look like. So we've got the contact washing machine. And if I double click, well, actually explain the flow. So typically what you want to do is scrub data before it actually leaves and goes out in an email, for example. So you would have your segment to begin with, then you would have the contact washing machine, and then from there you would go directly to your email. So if the example is that we want to look at proper case, so making sure that the data is cleansed, come in here, click on the pencil, which is the edit function, and the Cloud Action configuration window opens and starts to give you some options to play with. So you can name the step if you want. You can just pop in whatever you want there. So if it helps you, especially if you've got multiple steps happening, it might make sense. Then what we need to do is find the field, the source field that we want to play with. So in this example, I'm going to scroll down until I find first name. Then from first name, I can do two things. I can add a condition that will determine that this cleansing process actually takes place, or I can do an action, or I can do both. In this case, I'm just going to go straight to the action, and the action that I want to select is to make this proper case. Then the final step is the destination. So keeping in mind what we're doing here is we're looking at a field called first name. We're taking the data out of that field. We're manipulating it through the contact washing machine. We then have to put it back into that field. Now, the assumption might be that it should go back in the same field, but that's not always the case. In this case, it is. So we drop it back into first name. So that looks good. I can then hit save. And once I hit save, I get the confirmation at the top of the screen there. And so there you go. That's very simple. I mean, code free. You don't have to do any coding. You can add additional steps, as you can see there. You can also test information, for instance, to see how it's running. So you can just be certain that it's in fact doing the right thing for you. There's a range of different options that you've got to play with. So the contact washing machine, let me remember how to do this. So if I type in Derek at Marketing Cube, there I am, and contact added successfully, and run test. So what this is just a way for you to be comfortable with the change that you're doing. So here it is. Here's the result. So the input value in my field, in which case my field was already proper case, so that's fine. The action was taking place, and then the output value. So you can see that's what it looks like. So you can be confident knowing that that's exactly what it's going to do. So you can do that all within the app here, directly within the campaign canvas. So there you go. You've just configured that to do one pretty cool thing. So there are a whole range of different things you can do though, and that's what I've shared there is really just one of them. Let me show you what I've got here. So that's basically just giving you that example of where you would do it. So very rarely would you probably do the contact washing machine after an email, because typically what you're wanting to do is to make sure that any field messages or data that you're presenting that is unique to that particular individual is cleansed before the email goes out. So that would be a fairly generic way to do it, or general way to do it. So again, you saw there was a range of different actions, etc. Now, all of those actions and that detail that I showed you just a moment ago are available from within the Help Center. You'll find all that information. If you go straight to the Help Center and type in contact washing machine, you'll find everything you need there. The location of the contact washing machine, if you don't have it today, let me just show you where that lives. So from the settings area within the platform, again, it will depend on your level of access as to how much you can see here. You go to the apps area of the platform, and this opens the App Cloud catalog, which will show you a considerable amount of information, and also is where you're able to perform some of the initial configuration as well. So you can see there's a range of different apps that we've got installed. There's the contact washing machine, and you can do configuration, additional configuration within here. And this is where you would see from memory, this is where you also see some of those standard lookups. Yeah. So the celebrity match, first name to gender, title to level, title to role, etc. So you can create other lookups. These ones just happen to be built into the actual platform, or into the app, I should say. And so that's where it's accessed. If you need to find additional apps, or you don't have access to this particular area of Eloqua, then what you can do is, if you simply Google Oracle Cloud Marketplace, this is where you'll end up. You can get there from within Eloqua, but if you just simply Google Oracle Cloud Marketplace, you'll end up here. So what you could do is then find contact washing machine. There it is, contact washing machine. Oops. Contact washing machine app. And you could then send this link to your administrator and say, hey, it'd be really cool if we had this app in Eloqua. And so it'll explain there a little bit, give you some information, and then links off to the Help Center as well. That's the user guide that you can see there. So if you don't have it available today, but you think there'd be definitely value in having it, just Google that, send that information off to your administrator, and they'll be able to load that for you. It's free, doesn't cost a thing, and it literally takes maybe 4 to 5 minutes to install in your system. Okay, now there are a range of other things that I want to show you. That's just one of them. Let's have a look at viewing field population. So this is one of my favorites because it really lets you see the data directly. And especially if you're looking to do a significant campaign that requires you to focus on some specific pieces of data, you want to make sure that the quality of that data is going to support your campaign. So let's have a closer look, first of all, how you get there. And this is either contact or account fields that you can view. So essentially, again, when you're in the settings area of the platform, you can access manage fields and views. You can see it highlighted there on the left. Once you do that, you can come into the platform. You can see a whole range of different fields that are available. In this example, I've highlighted state or province. Actually, it's state AU I should have done. Then the secret part is this button down here, which is the view population details. And when you click on view population details, it brings you into this area of Eloqua, which is now going to show you every field value and how many of those values exist in a contact within the platform. Let me just dive in there and show you a little bit further. And that's our table. Where are we? No, sorry, I've got too many windows open. Here I am. Okay. So this is the fields and views area. And so what I've done is I've done a search on the word state, and this is the field that we use for state. And down the bottom of the screen, you can see the field population details. So when that opens, you'll see this long list of information. So the first thing to look at is this is a field that we have on the contact called state. Now, my geography is pretty good, and I know that the USA is not a state. It's in fact a country. So there's obviously some data issues somewhere that the expression USA has appeared in a state field. Now, when I think across all the different forms, etc., they're all drop-down pick lists. The weak point is the CRM. In the CRM, it's a free text field. Now, if I wanted to get specific to try and find out those 6 particular values, what I could do is go to a segment. And what I do is I keep a segment open. And this particular segment is just called whatever you want. And so what that enables me to do now is actually find those 6 contacts where the state field has been populated with USA. And here it is right here. So you can see that that information is obviously not valid. So I need to clean that, and that's a manual process at this point. But if you find you start to get common errors, then that could be an example of where a lookup table, for instance, could be helpful to automate some of that cleansing process. But sometimes you need to look at the data itself and understand where it's coming from before you automate it. So I can then just go into the CRM would be the logical place for me to go to actually make those corrections because that's our source of truth, and that would then flow through to Eloqua. So again, just looking at that, any of these fields, now it doesn't really work on things like first name, for example. So if I go to first name, the problem is there's more than 1,000 unique values. So it's really not, there's no feature in that. Not a good option. So it's really helpful though when you want to tidy things up. So if I choose city, I'm not sure if there'd be too many. Let's have a look. Okay, it is doing some thinking. So maybe, yeah, there we go. So something that this can be helpful with is just a quick scan down to see if you spot any typos or spelling errors, for instance. You can sort of just quickly scan down there. So if you did want to make some changes and correct the spelling of something, there we go. Let's look at Dandenong South. So hate uppercase, don't want that. So what I can do is go to edit, and I can see the original value is Dandenong South, but I want the new value to actually be in proper case. So I can do that and say save and close. It'll just say, hey, you sure you want to do that? Yep, I'm really sure I want to do that. And that will refresh. And we then no longer have Dandenong South in uppercase sitting in the database. So it also, the other thing that's quite helpful is to give you the number. So for instance, if I wanted to run a campaign focusing on people who have told me they live in Perth, I know I've got 187 people there. Now I need to do some additional segmentation to be a bit smarter than that, because I want to look at who's active, who's not unsubscribed, all that sort of information as well. But it can be really helpful to, especially if you're looking at dynamic content and those sorts of things, because dynamic content, you're going to use the values on the contact or the account record to drive that dynamic content. So you can get very excited about a campaign, but when you actually come and have a look at your data, you'll find that maybe you don't have enough data really to drive that experience. So this can just be a good place to come, a little bit of a sanity check, but also good to do some cleansing and cleaning of your data along the way as well. So that's another way that you can look at cleansing some data. Now, the managing fields and views area of Eloqua, which if I just go back one step, here, the different views that you have available, you can see here. So views are available right across Eloqua. You can see we've got a huge range of them. But wherever you're in a scenario where you're looking at contacts, so here, for instance, I'm in segments, and these are all the different contact views that we have available. And that can be really helpful because sometimes if it's an event, as an example, then you really just want information that's going to help you with the individual. So it's maybe to help you with name tag creation, those sorts of things. If you're exporting data on a regular basis, and if you're getting to Excel and then having to delete 35 different columns, then that's a really good example of where creating a contact view could save you quite a bit of time. So again, from a data management point of view, that creation of views is really simple. Again, if you don't have access to this area of Eloqua, what you could do is simply just build out a list for your administrator. All your administrator has to do is come in here, hit the plus sign, contact view, and then literally just add the relevant fields that they want in order to build out the contact view that you're after. This is not a huge exercise. It's literally 4 to 5 minutes, depending on the size of the view that you want. But it can be really, really helpful in helping you look at data and actually get something out of it instead of spending hours scrolling left and right across 250 plus columns of information. So just another tip to help you manage that data a bit better. Okay, does anybody have any questions on any of those particular points? Alrighty, let's jump back in. So I just wanted to remind you of Add This. We've talked a little bit about it previously, but it's the social sharing and also reporting functionality that's available to help you across your Eloqua campaigns, largely, well, primarily with landing pages. So let's have a closer look at what that means. And just in case you're not familiar, this is what Add This looks like from a social sharing point of view and also a follow point of view on a website. So this is, we've got Add This sitting on our CMS, example WordPress. We also, and you've probably seen it yourself when you've registered for the user group, we have that same functionality across not all, but some of our landing pages. Not all landing pages we necessarily want people to share from a social point of view. Others we do, so we can control that, as we can control it on the CMS as well. So it's not just carte blanche across every single page that you have. You can pick and choose which page. And you can also do multiple profiles as well. So Add This is an app, and don't love that word free. So Oracle purchased Add This, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago. It's been a while that they purchased it. Obviously, Oracle are after the data, all that sharing that's happening across different platforms. But for you, what it does, it enables you to make social sharing of your Eloqua landing pages really simple for people to participate. And there's just about every conceivable social platform that you would ever imagine. You know, WeChat, everything's covered in there. There's also links to, you can see actually on the screen right there, hopefully. It's kind of small, but there's a print. They can go straight to print, for instance, or you can have an envelope to Gmail or whichever. So there's a whole range of different functions that it has, but it's very simple. It's free. And the reporting that it gives you is kind of cool. I just wanted to show this to you. Again, this is just an app that you add to Eloqua, but this is the actual Add This interface. So it's free to set up an account. And what I've done is I've just filtered this to the last 72 hours. So this gives you a little bit of an idea of the traffic we've had across our website for the last 72 hours. It also then lists the top content that is happening. Homepage, often number 1, some event information, a little bit more detail about Eloqua and the products, etc. And you can see, you can just sort of keep scrolling through. And so, and again, this is just in the last 72 hours. So you can see there's a decent amount of traffic, which is kind of cool. What you also get is top referring domains, top social sources. So we had one person come through from LinkedIn, Marketing Cube, etc., as in our own website. Then down here, top campaigns. So you can see the Eloqua information flows through quite nicely. And you'll notice that's all about the user group, which makes sense. The device and platform is kind of cool too. So it breaks it down. Let me minimize that. So you've got desktop and mobile showing you the different views. And then you get the detail right down to browser level. And then also from mobile, looking at the different iOS and Android, etc. So great information, really good information that is available absolutely free. It doesn't cost you anything. Only takes a few moments to set up. You essentially create a profile in here. So I have a profile that's called, I think it's called Eloqua, another profile called website. So one of those profiles we use on WordPress, and the other we obviously use in Eloqua, etc. Once you install the app within Eloqua, there are actually links within there that'll bring you to this page and do that whole account creation for you. So you can actually do the whole process directly from within Eloqua. So I just wanted to remind you that Add This is available, and the beautiful part is that it's free, and we all love free. Okay, any questions on those at all? Oh, we see a question. Can you see the companies that have visited? If not, does Eloqua integrate with the likes of Leadfeeder? My understanding is, Trudy, that there is a LinkedIn, sorry, there is an app for Leadfeeder. Jason, you may be more familiar than I on that particular one. Maybe you could help Trudy with that. There is also significant integration with LinkedIn. So if your organization is using the LinkedIn Sales Navigator app, that app and that data ties in quite nicely with Profiler. So 19C was delivered in August, and hopefully you've noticed a range of different changes within the platform. I just wanted to quickly revisit those, which we did last month, but there's a few more I just want to show you that you may have missed. So the in-app guidance has been extended, so now you can hit that little question mark directly within the form editor, the campaign canvas, emails and landing pages. And so for the newer users amongst us, that can be really quite helpful. Videos straight into the help center, but specifically to those areas that matter. So it's help when you need it and at the right place. The CSS will automatically render an email and landing page editors, meaning that if you do have CSS applied to your landing pages and email, then you'll see that while you're editing the different assets. You used to have to look at the landing page live on the internet or send yourself the test email in order to see that. That's not the case now. So that just makes it a little bit easier from a design and layout point of view. The email search enhancement is kind of cool. They've moved where you see it. So if I jump in just quickly here to show you at the email home screen, you'll notice now the search is located here. So if I type in very generically user group, you can start to see it breaks it down by those which are recent and any others that contain the term user group whatsoever. So you can do a complete search by hitting enter. Now the other thing, I'm not sure if you've noticed this, guys, is you have a new column here which includes the subject line of the email. It's been something that I think was on the dream list, but already I'm finding that quite helpful to have that information displayed there. So just in case you missed it, that's available today. So you should be able to see that in your own instance of Eloqua. The Salesforce integration app, lots of enhancements. We're looking very closely at that. There are many of you, or a good number of you, that are using Salesforce CRM platform with Eloqua. And so we're looking very closely at that integration app to look at those enhancements to try and determine if it's appropriate for you to potentially move from the previous application to the new one. So we'll be in contact as we start to get a bit closer to understanding all of those different changes. We don't want to do testing on you. We'd rather do the testing on us, and we'll help you with that as we move through. Something else that has just been a real bugbear of mine that I uncovered, I just noticed it yesterday. I missed it in the notes. But the campaign settings used to default to 1 year. That's not the case anymore. The default is now 3 months, which is much better. I would still encourage you to utilize the custom date to select the end date of your campaign, but 3 months is much better than 1 year. 1 year was just completely unrealistic. For many customers who might have a canvas with only 2 or 3 emails on it, those 2 or 3 emails might be delivered within the space of a week. So there was no need to have a campaign end date set for 12 months out. Another question there. Oh, no, thanks, Jason. Jason's just helping Trudy with that. But yes, so you've got a change there. So if you haven't noticed, that's a positive. But again, I would still encourage you to use the custom date. It just gives you much more accurate reporting. That's the key reason at the end of the day. Then the other thing that's happened that is just making life a little bit easier more than anything else and just saving some navigation. When you're in the form editor, you'll notice if you go to the settings area of the form that the dependencies link has been added here. Previously, you'd have to go up to the actions menu, select it, etc., in order for it to display. But here you can just one click and that information will open right in front of you, showing you exactly where that form is being used. So for many of you who may have a single form used across many assets, this can be quite helpful. So if you need to make changes, you can just be careful, have a close look, understand where and what the impact might be of some of those changes. And again, just to ensure you're having the best possible experience as you're using Eloqua, the browser that you choose to use can make quite a difference to that process as well. So as of release 19C, Chrome version 75 and Firefox version 68 are the 2 browsers that will give you the best possible experience while using Eloqua. You'll find this information in the Help Center. Again, I find the easiest way to find it is just type in the word Firefox. The only reason for that is that's the only page in the entire help center the word Firefox appears. So you'll always go to the right page. So just search for Firefox and then you'll see a table. It'll talk to you about Internet Explorer and other browsers, etc., and the level of functionality you can expect to have with those. But if possible, Chrome and Firefox would be the preferred browsers for you to be using while using Eloqua. Then to almost finish off today, 19D, I'm assuming some really cool stuff. Now, I did actually hear something on the grapevine this week that I thought I'd share with you, specifically in relation to dynamic content and shared content. So for those of you that are using those on a regular basis, you will obviously have identified that the editing experience within those two areas of Eloqua doesn't really match the new design editor for emails and landing pages. So if, like me, you get excited because you don't have to do any HTML, when you go off to dynamic content and shared content, that's not quite the experience that you have. So I heard on the grapevine, through a good source on the grapevine, that we should see changes to those platforms by the middle of next year. So they're underway, apparently, on the roadmap, and we should hopefully see those changes by the middle of next year. The other thing to think about, though, and I kind of throw this out to you and let you have a think, and please feel free to email me directly with any suggestions. And if they're going through, if Oracle is going through a process of rebuilding those particular areas of the platform, is there something that shared content or dynamic content doesn't do today that you'd really like it to do, or that you feel would be a really great extension of the product in order for it to do? Have a think about that. And if you wanted to send that through, I will absolutely make sure that information gets through to the development team, the Oracle development team in the US. So, because we're kind of early stages at the moment, and from what I've been told, they're still looking and trying to understand what they can do to not just do a like-for-like upgrade of those two tools, but actually how can dynamic content be enhanced to do more? How can shared content be enhanced to potentially do more? So now's our chance, people. If you've got some ideas, please shoot them through, and we'll make sure we get them through to the right people at Oracle. Well, that brings us to a close. If you do have any questions, please stay on the line. I can see Mary's actually just said, definitely for dynamic content to use behavior or activity-based criteria and rules. Yeah, totally agree with you on that one. That would be awesome. Can you set up a custom end date on simple campaigns? Laura, not that I'm aware of, but I'm not sure what the value would be, because typically a simple email campaign is just a single email. So you would nominate an activation time and that's it, off it goes. So if you want to shoot me an email, I'm happy to talk that one through in a bit more detail for you. You're welcome, Catherine. So I'll stay online, guys, for a few more minutes. If you do have any questions, please feel free to use the chat function. And otherwise, have a great week, and we'll chat to you soon. Thank you very much.